Good evening, folks. It's Diamond with the Oppenheimer Ranch Project, Magnetic Reversal News, Sacred Geography, and Shinrin Yoku, bringing you a grand solar minimum update Friday, April 21st, 8:45 p.m. Mountain Time 2023. A large plasma filament destabilized from active region 3283 earlier today. The filament created a coronal mass ejection measuring at M1.7, and the halo eruption is headed directly at Earth. More on that in just a moment. The big story, weather whiplash, cold air invades the lower 48 after summer-like warmth. And this means all that snow piling up all winter, that's going to melt and cause flooding. Keep calm. It's boom time. East Dubuque residents brace for flooding as the Mississippi River rises. Wisconsin flooding along the Mississippi River expected to rise to major flood category. First responders prepare for flooding in the La Crosse cities across the Mississippi River. And yes, communities along St. Croix River feeling the impact of historic flooding. And more is coming, specifically to the South San Joaquin Valley and Lake Tulare, and that area is going to be filling up, well, in the coming weeks. Now, hail, flash flooding hit central Texas during severe weather over the last 24 hours. There was flooding and there was pummeling, and no one had a helmet on. But let's take a look at the hail map for just say Wednesday, April 19th. 250,000 hail reports, just about 151 above 1.75 inches. And yesterday, Thursday, April 20th, 259,000 plus hail reports over an inch, 443 over 1.75. And these numbers are increasing. So heads up. And as far as the spring snowmelt is concerned, all of the water is still in place. Take a look at some of these numbers. 285%, 355% above normal, 219, 212. All this has to melt out and come down through all of these river valleys. And that is going to mean some epic flooding in the weeks to come. Here's the full forecast. A strong cold front sweeps through the east. Showers and thunderstorms will usher in much colder temperatures after a few days of unseasonably warm temps. Wildly scattered severe storms may produce damaging winds, large hail, and brief tornadoes for parts of the southeast and mid-Atlantic. Heavy snow and blowing snow will develop across the eastern interior Alaska as a system moves across the state and strengthens in the Gulf of Alaska. Frost and freeze warnings. Hard freeze and freeze warnings for the center of the country, and winter storm warnings as well as flood warnings up for Minnesota and North Dakota. Say it ain't soda, but it is. Let's take a look at the models. It was warm today all the way up through Kansas into the 80s, but this is quickly going to be crushed out. Take a look at this Wednesday. Those reds, they're going to move up in there, but they are going to moderate. And by Thursday, that cool air is going to squeeze out all of the warm air in the east and the southeast. And by this weekend, well, it's go time. It's going to be chilly in the northeast. It is not going to recover anywhere except in the normal areas here in the far south. So Saturday is going to be quite chilly in the northeast and throughout the country. And by Sunday, it's going to be feeling like a warm winter day. Look at this, 30s all the way down through Kentucky, West Virginia, and Virginia. Maybe even some 30s into Tennessee, 30s into Iowa, 30s into Oklahoma potentially. So it's going to be a chilly Sunday and certainly not a fun day. Look at that. And the cold stays through Monday as the cold is locked in all the way through May. It's not going to warm up until May again, so don't expect any global warming scares anytime soon. Now let's take a look at the severe weather threat. You can see a threat here in the southeast currently, and it's going to be moving east. Nothing spectacular popping up until Saturday and Sunday. Pennsylvania, Virginia, the Delmarva, even all the way down towards South Carolina there and North Carolina could be picking up some heavy severe weather. So we're going to keep a close eye on that for the closeout of the weekend as far as the severe weather watch. And then let's take a look at the snowfall totals. Here is your Saturday through Sunday fun day. Heavy snow moving down through the spine of the high elevation of the Rockies. Nothing else much more than that until we get into Monday and Tuesday. And Wednesday and Thursday, you can see more snow falling on the Rocky Mountain front as system after system moves through the region. We might even get some North New Mexico snow, ho-ho. That's going to be falling starting Saturday, April 29th. And maybe next weekend. Take a look at that. More snow for the Northeast, perhaps. Maine, it will be insane if it dumps 16 inches. But we're keeping a close eye as the snow is going nowhere through May. That is May 7th, folks. Oh, my gosh. Look at that. May 7th, 2023. And there is snow in Maine. It's insane. Boom. Look at that. Cold weather could mean 50% fewer wine grapes in British Columbia. Well, I thought we were burning up. Shut up, Al. He doesn't like it when I discredit the global warming narrative. But in fact, cold weather means 50% fewer grapes.
Not unusual per se, because it's not.
And it's not unusual per se because global warming, blah, blah, blah. But vineyards across British Columbia were hard hit by a major cold snap last year, which could have significant impact on production in the Okanagan. Temperatures dropped in late December of last year, and some areas in the valley dipped close to minus 30. That's zone 4, father. It seems to be more and more common recently that the temperature in British Columbia is getting colder and colder, yet the mainstream media doesn't pick up on the narrative. But the farmers do. And who knew, but now you do. This event seems to be more widespread all the way down south to Osceosus, said Wine Growers British Columbia President Mike Miles Prodan. And good on you for telling the truth. Seismic update. No quakes of note. I lied. 2.5 in Oakdale, Tennessee is quite a unique rocker. We also had activity in Turkmenistan at 4.3. And as far as bizarre earthquakes, those are the two that take the cake. Really no other activity worth mentioning. All is normal, seismically speaking. A quick jump over to Iceland as a whole shows a slight uptick in seismicity over the entire country. Albeit, most of the uptick is in the Turnus fracture zone, the Reykjanes Ridge, and even here by Hekla, or is that Ostja? Who knew? But overall, the seismicity is at low levels, so nothing is imminent, albeit increased. So we'll keep a close eye on that for you. Now, moving over to worldwide volcano news. Now, we do have some explosive activity coming out from volcanoes worldwide. Liwotolol to 7,000. Klucheskov, Popo, Ibu, Dukono, Nevado de Ruiz. Nevado de Ruiz, no volcanic ash, but still on the advisory. Klucheskov also, second time on the advisory with no advisable height. So maybe just some evidence of ash there. Dukono to 7,000. Popo to 23,000. Ibo to 14. But big news. Take a look at this. Semaru to 14. We've got Sangay coming in at 43,000 feet just hours ago. According to this report, volcanic emissions were observed to 43,000 feet at Sangay Volcano. According to the Volcanic Ash Advisory Center in Washington, warned about a volcanic ash plume rising to 43,000 feet. Elevation 430. You want to come down and make sure the observations are correct. Here we can see an observation and another cloud observation at flight level 430. That's at 43,000 feet. Another elevation, 43,000 feet. Another elevation, 43,000 feet. Now, large volcanic emissions were observed in satellite imaging moving west and extending at least 70 nautical miles from the summit. So this is a big boom. And there won't be an advisory for a while. This is in a remote region, but this is a significant eruption that I'm sure no one is reporting on. And, well, could be a glitch, but Until we can confirm it, we're going to share it with you that another major eruption of 43,000 feet has occurred. And it's just mind-boggling. Do you know that there's more than 19,000 undersea volcanoes recently discovered? Yeah, we told you about the seamount recently discovered off of Southern California. But new seamount maps could aid in studies of ecology, plate tectonics, global warming or cooling, and even ocean mixing. And the fact that we've discovered 19,000 undersea volcanoes recently, well, should give you pause and should make you think that what we think we know is a lot less than we actually know. Now, what do we know about the sun? It just went boom, but not from a solar flare, not from sunspots, not from solar max, simply a plasma filament eruption. And we're going to get deep into the dive right now. Now, the two main eruptions that can come from the sun are coronal mass ejections, include both of them. Solar flares or plasma filaments can both lead to coronal mass ejections. CMEs don't always occur from solar flares, but typically a plasma filament eruption shoots plasma away from the corona, so it always results in a coronal mass ejection. And typically they are long duration, or in this case, it's more moderate duration. It lasted for hours because it takes a while for the filament to fully release and explode out into space. Whereas a solar flare that produces a CME can be short-lived, just like a boom, like a nuclear explosion. Some solar flares can be longer in duration, especially when we get up into the higher ranges. But plasma filaments overall create a longer ejecta stream over a longer period of time, resulting in a longer duration coronal mass ejection, like the M1.7 that happened earlier today from active region 3283. Now, the solar X-rays were gradually rising into the lower M range territory earlier today when we were monitoring this, and we realized what was occurring. It was a filament release, yes. An Earth-facing filament indeed, in the vicinity of active region 3283. So 3283 didn't flare, it released a filament that it was holding on to. Now, updated imagery courtesy of SDO, or the Solar Dynamics Observatory, suggests that a coronal mass ejection is associated with this and could potentially be Earth-directed because of the halo nature. When we have a blast, when you're looking at Earth that comes off in a ring like this, or a halo, that means it's headed right at this white circle, which is right at Earth. Actually, the white circle is the edge of the sun, but because the halo is coming from directly perpendicular from us, it's coming at us. And that means we could see some geomagnetic storms all the way down into the low latitudes. There is the current model coming out from the ISWA Signet streamer, and it's showing quite a thick density current smashing into Earth. Boom! Right there on the 23rd. Yes, April 23rd. Towards the end of the day, UTC, early the 24th, this baby is coming. And the updates are not currently there as far as the 3-day geomagnetic forecast. This will be updated tomorrow, and it will show geomagnetic storm here on the 24th. We're just that ahead of the curve. Now, the WSA annual solar wind prediction spiral does not have the updated data. These guys have gone home for the weekend. It probably will not be updated, in my opinion, unless they got some people coming in here on Saturday, which is Saturday in Pagosa, by the way, 10% off all. Well, anyway, I do digress. What I do find interesting is that there are so many people in position of power at these places that could have imaged this in a few hours today that did not. Now, thankfully, ISWA is updated by AI and not people, which is why the information comes out so quickly. But we will be waiting for updates from the WSA annual solar spiral to confirm the modeling and the thickness and density of this event by tomorrow. So stay tuned for the boom. Let's take a look at that halo eruption. This is LASCO C2, the last 24 hours. And what you're going to see when we get around 18 UTC, boom, that halo blast out there. Let's stop that and slow it down so you can see what actually occurs during the event here, and we'll just walk it through. So we're going to just step this up slowly. Actually, LASCO C3 is better. Right around 1800 UTC here, you can see the beginning of the explosion here. Watch it. Boom, boom. And then the shock wave across the all around. That's the halo effect. Not coming out very good on LASCO C2 here, but on C3, it is quite impressive indeed. Watch for the 18, and then the boom. Click. There it is. So we can walk that through much better with you, and we'll just stop it, and we'll bring you right through to the CME right here, which is showing up on C3 a little later, 1900 UTC. But clearly a massive halo explosion. I don't even need to prove it to you. That's very obvious there. Headed our way. That means that plasma filament exploded. All this plasma here is headed directly at us. And it will arrive, well, in just about 2 days. Now, the blinding flash over Kiev was probably a meteorite, according to Ukraine's space agency. A lot of people thought this was the re-entering ancient defunct satellite that actually disintegrated over North Africa. Oops. So let's take a look at the event if we can bring it in here. That is a massive bolide, clearly. This is a meteor, not a re-entering satellite. A re-entering satellite would take a shallower angle and would not be as bright. This thing was moving quite rapidly. And probably left some chunks on the surface as we look at some of the video from Ukraine from last night of the object. Literally brighter than the moon or the sun even at some points here. So this object was not the re-entering satellite. It was a bolide that just happened to be a few hours within the same time range as the defunct NASA satellite that disintegrated over North Africa. And it even says here, the bright flash seen over the capital of Ukraine was mistakenly attributed to the satellite's re-entry, with NASA denying any connection. And in fact, the Department of Defense confirmed that the 660-pound spacecraft re-entered the atmosphere over the Sahara Desert region at approximately 26 degrees longitude and 213 degrees latitude. NASA said in an updated statement, the space agency expected most of the spacecraft to burn up as it traveled through the atmosphere, but for some components to survive re-entry. Earlier, NASA had said that the risk of harm to people was around 1 in 2,467, and no people apparently were harmed because it landed right here in the middle of nowhere. Good news. Now, bad news from SpaceX. The uncrewed Starship, the largest rocket ever launched, was a success, but it exploded about 4 minutes after the launch. And according to SpaceX's team, anything beyond the launch was great. And here we can see the explosion as it disintegrated. Yeah, so SpaceX, well, they claim it was a success. And they even stated this before the launch, that anything above liftoff was gravy. So good news coming from SpaceX. They're going to learn a lot, and they have another launch attempt in just a few months. Now, we want to share with you a paper that came out yesterday on the external forcing of global eruptive activity in the past 300 years. Now, what this team of scientists looked at was all of the forcing factors that may be contributing to volcanic activity. And specifically, they looked at the sun and other factors. And the conclusions, well, were pretty spectacular. They showed a direct connection between the amount of erupting volcanoes and the solar cycles. So there was a connection between solar activity and the amount of erupting volcanoes. We can also see a cycle here that is about 20 years or so of increasing volcanic activity and decreasing. Now, according to this study, it looks like it corresponds directly to the Hale cycle, which is the 22-year solar polar reversal, which includes 2 solar cycles. Each solar cycle is 1/2 of a solar polar reversal. So if you add 2 solar cycles together, you get a full increase in volcanic activity and a full decrease. So we're looking at solar cycle 23 here, and then solar cycle 24. And then we'll look at solar cycle 25, and then 26. So we will see an increase in volcanic activity during the last 5 years of solar cycle 25, and the first 5 years of solar cycle 26. This is a very revealing paper on what we have to look forward to: increased volcanic activity that's cyclic. Now, did you hear about the Canadian job? By the way, before we get to this, all of the links will be below the video. Everything we talk about is linked below the video, so you can check out all of our resources and do your own homework. And I implore everyone to take a look at this paper, which will be linked below. Now, a huge heist, a massive $12 million gold heist, was stolen in an audacious Ocean's 11 style heist that made off with bullion, gold bullion from the airport. And they have this wonderful, someone spent a lot of time to make it a cartoon, which means it's an inside job. Canadian cops are probing the theft of $12 million in bullion, which this is like $1 trillion in bullion. 12 million in bullion will fit on the top of a table, by the way. It doesn't need an entire container to fit it. But they thought it was much more money initially. Now, the gold arrived at Pearson Airport on the 17th of April in a 5-foot container, was moved to a holding warehouse. This could be about 12 million. Maybe that pile right there. But criminals gained access to the airport, used a forklift to stick it in a truck, and drove away. And nobody has any details. That's definitely an inside job. But more inside jobs like this, stealing wealth, money, precious metals, jewelry, and food, are the future of humanity. Mark my words. Now, have you heard of the Charlemagne event? Until recently, the years 774 and 775 were best known for Charlemagne's victory over the Lombards. But researchers point to the sun as a likely source of the 8th century Charlemagne event. And this is one of the biggest and longest solar storms ever recorded in the last 10,000 years in the Holocene. And it says one of two things. Either we've never witnessed a solar storm that can last for a year or more, or that something else was happening during this event. Now, the unique thing is that there are at least a half a dozen events just like this that have happened in the last 10,000 years that are not micronovas, they're not magnetic excursions, and they are the most severe solar storms ever recorded. So there are many channels out there that are not actually looking into the science, that want to keep you informed, and you should probably stop watching them or questioning them. Why aren't they bringing up the 5 super flare events that have happened after the Younger Dryas? These are events that are unexplained by science, and Lee and I are going to do a deep dive into the Charlemagne event and all the super flare or super cosmic ray events, solar energetic particle events, whatever you want to call them. Just don't call them micronova, because they're not. Join us on Revolution Radio tomorrow noon Mountain Time to discuss the topic and watch it later on Magnetic Reversal News as a full podcast. If you don't know how to watch Revolution Radio, simply go to revolution.radio on the internet. The #1 internet-supported radio on the interwebs. It's listener-supported exclusively. There are no sponsors. And we are in Studio B every day, noon Mountain Time on Saturday. Just click the listen. And we'll just click it now. Is anybody playing?
Down here.
Yep.
No. Yeah, you don't want to do any of that. So just...
No, you do want to do that. You do want to come to the channel tomorrow, 12 noon Mountain Time, Saturday, 12 noon Mountain Time, Revolution Radio Studio B, where you will get the 23rd episode of Cosmic Catastrophe on the Charlemagne event. And that's a boom to knowledge. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Share this with like-minded people. Please share this video. We are shadow banned, and the only way we can grow is if you support the channel and get us out there. You can also become a Patreon, support the work we do for as little as $1 a month, and watch all of our videos commercial-free. Hit the thumbs up. It helps with the Al Gore rhythm, and be safe. We love you.